Hello everyone, welcome to Come Sit at My Table. We're Tom and Melissa and we do appreciate that you're here with us. Tonight, and it is tonight, we are starting a recipe that we will actually finish tomorrow. We are making a recipe that has been made daily since 1903. And that recipe is served every single day in the lunchroom or the cafeteria of the Senate building in Washington, D.C. In 1903, a simple soup that was kind of a ham and bean soup was served that the senators and other staffers in the building went crazy for. And so the chef in the Senate building continued to make it, and it has stayed on the menu every single day since 1903. It is known as Senate bean soup. Now, this soup is very basic. There's nothing hard or complicated, no crazy ingredients to it at all. It basically is a bean and ham soup. But if you're going to make it, you have to start the night before. And let me explain why. The star of the show is navy beans. And navy beans look like this. Now, navy beans come in a bag, 1 pound bag, and they must be rinsed, and then you have to look them. Now, I know if you're not familiar with that term, you might say, what do you mean you look them? Well, that means you look through them. You pick out any bad beans. If there are any little pebbles or sticks, then you have to take those out. And then you soak these beans in water overnight. You let them sit in water so that they can be ready to cook the next day. It just kind of prepares them to be softened. So that's what we're going to do tonight. This is going to be very short tonight, and we will finish this video tomorrow when we actually make the soup. But all I'm going to do is rinse these. Then I'm going to come over here to the counter and I'm going to look the beans. Then we'll put them in water and let them soak. So let me go rinse these real fast. I'm just going to turn on the water. Run them under water quickly. I can already see some beans in there that are going to have to come out. You can already see some bad beans. Might even see a rock in there. Not sure if that was a rock or if that was a bean. All right. And see right there? Oh, I lost it again. I saw it, but oh, here it is. Look here. Look at that. I thought that might be a rock, but I think that is actually a bean. But that has to come out of there. Okay. So, let's just let that drain a minute. We'll lay that bad bean right there. We're going to take a towel to put under these. And now we're going to look the beans. And all I'm going to do is take a handful out, spread them out on my counter, look to see if there are any in here that are bad. There's one that's a little darker than the rest. So, and it looks like it's kind of shriveled up, so I'll pull it out. I'm just going to lay it there on the bag. The rest of these can go right in the bowl. So we'll just throw those in. And we'll continue. Our next handful. Look, the beans. There's one right there. And there's one right there that needs to come out. Everything else is okay. So in they go. So that's what I mean when I say we have to look the beans. There's a bad one right there. You just have to go through them, make sure there are no rocks, no twigs, no dirt. That's why we rinsed them. We just wanted to make sure that we got the dust off of them. Look at this one right here. This one has started to sprout. But when we finish, then we're going to cover them with water. And you have to cover them with plenty of water. you want them at least 3 times as much water as you have beans, because you want them to be able to soak up some of that water while they're sitting overnight.
Do you refrigerate them?
No, you can leave them right out on your counter. In fact, it's best not to refrigerate them. Just leave them at room temperature and let them sit in that water. They will soak up some of that water. They certainly won't soak up all of it.
Is there a minimum number of hours they should soak?
If you leave them overnight, probably 8 hours or more, it'll be fine, but it won't hurt them if you leave them longer than that either. But you need to leave them for hours. Like, I would say probably a minimum of 8 hours. Now, if you have any that float, right here's one. See this one floating, Melissa? Mm-hmm. See how that's floating right there?
Is that a bad bean?
That's a bad one. We got to take that out there. Okay, so we're just going to put a lid on this, and we're going to let these beans sit right there overnight. And tomorrow, when we're ready to make our ham and bean soup or Senate soup, whichever one you want to call it, we'll come back and drain our beans and use those. So, off to bed we go, and we will see you tomorrow when it's time to make soup. Last night, we started our Senate bean soup by rinsing and soaking our beans. Now, I want you to look at what's happened with these beans. You can tell that they have really kind of puffed up. They've swollen up. They did really well for all the disappointment I had in those beans last night. They really have turned out to be fairly nice beans. So those are ready for us to drain and start cooking. But before we do that, let's talk about what else we're going to need for Senate bean soup. We're also going to use 1 smoked ham hock. Now, it does need to be smoked. I just feel like it being a smoked ham hock gives your soup a lot more flavor. You can find just regular ham hocks that have not been smoked, but I'm going to tell you, this adds a lot of flavor, and it will make your beans just have, I don't know, just a more depth, rich of flavor. I could only find 2 ham hocks in a package. I couldn't find just 1, so we're going to use 1. The other one, I will put in a Ziploc freezer bag, or I'll vacuum seal it and put it in our freezer, and we'll keep it for another pot of soup later. Don't get rid of it. You can always use it later, and these freeze really well. So we're going to use 1 of these. It's about a 1 pound ham hock, 3/4 to 1 pound. We're also going to use 8 cups of water. Now, this is where you have a choice to make. I use all water, but you can change that to 8 cups of chicken broth or 8 cups of vegetable broth. Either one of those work. Or you can do half and half, 4 cups of chicken broth, 4 cups of water, whatever. You can mix and match those. I feel like the 8 cups of water just gives it a more authentic Senate bean soup taste, so I use water. But you use whatever you like. We're also going to use 2 bay leaves, and that's just going to go in with our beans and our ham hock while they cook, just to give it a little flavor, and then we will remove those before we finish the soup. Now that's where we're going to start our soup. Our ham hock, our beans, our water, and bay leaves. And we will let those cook for 1.5 hours over low heat, where it's just kind of simmering, cooking, and it will be covered. After 1.5 hours, we will use 2 tablespoons of butter. And in that 2 tablespoons of butter, we will saute a chopped onion, 2 or 3 chopped carrots. I'm probably going to use 3 because we do like carrots in it. And by the way, the original Senate bean soup did not have carrots in it, from what I understand. But we do like carrots in it, so we are adding those. And then 2 or 3 ribs of celery. Now, these are celery sticks. They've already been trimmed down on both ends, so they're a little shorter than if you bought a whole stalk of celery. So I may use 3 in it, but 2 is probably enough. So 2 or 3 stalks of celery. Then after we get those cooked, and by the way, those three things, your onions, carrots, and celery, need to be chopped so that the pieces are about the same size as your navy beans. You want everything in here to be about the same size. So you are going to chop those fairly small. After we melt the butter, get our chopped onions, carrots, and celery in there, and they are just about tender, then we're going to add 2 cloves of garlic. Now, if you buy yours already minced like I do, that's 1 teaspoon. So 2 cloves of garlic if you're mincing your own, 1 teaspoon if you have it already done. The last 2 ingredients are a maybe. Salt, probably not. We will taste the soup right at the very end just to see if it's salty enough. If it has no flavor, if it's a little bland, we might add just a little bit, maybe up to a teaspoon, probably not even that much. Normally, I don't add any, but we will have to taste it to see. Then we will add a little bit of pepper, a couple pinches, maybe up to half a teaspoon, but probably not even quite that much. You won't need much of these, if any. You'll just have to taste your soup and see what you think and adjust it to your taste. But be very careful. You don't want a lot of this in there because that ham hock is going to add a lot of salt to the soup already. All right, so let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is put our ham hock in our soup pot. So I'm just going to take that ham hock and put it right in the bottom. Then I'm going to take our beans and we're going to drain these. Now, we don't have to rinse them. We just have to drain them. We want that water off there that they've been sitting in all night. Let's just make sure they're drained well. And then we're just going to put these right in the pot around our ham hock. Okay. Then we're going to add our 8 cups of liquid. Mine is water. You can do water, chicken broth, vegetable broth, combination, whatever you want. That's up to you. And we'll add a couple of bay leaves. Now, this is going to simmer. I'll get my fire started here. And I am going to turn it on high until it starts to cook. And then I will reduce it so that it's just at a simmer. I'll probably take it down to close to low, between medium, low, and low. And we will cover it and let it cook for 1.5 hours. Now, at some point during that 1.5 hours, I am going to chop the onion, carrots, and celery. But we will come back and let you see us saute those before we add them to the pot. Let me also tell you while I'm thinking about it, at the very end, if your soup is a little thick, if you want it to be more soupy, you can always add up to 2 cups more of liquid. You can add, again, water, chicken broth, vegetable broth, whatever you want to add. Vegetable stock is good. So just keep that in mind. You may want to have 2 more cups of whatever liquid you're using, and you can mix them. If you've used all chicken broth and at the end you need more and you don't have any more chicken broth, put in 2 cups of water. But just remember that at the end you may need a couple more cups of some liquid. Okay, we're going to let this cook for 1.5 hours, and then we'll be back to show you the next step. Our beans and ham hock have been cooking for about 1.5 hours. I shouldn't say cooking, I should probably say simmering, because I do have them turned almost to low. So it's not like a full rolling boil, they're just bubbling, just simmering. So now that 1.5 hours has passed, we need to remove that ham hock to a plate and let it start to cool so that we can pick the meat off of it. I can't do that while it's scorching hot. So we're going to start by removing that ham hock. I will just put my lid right over there. We will pick that ham hock up, and I want you to look how that has pulled away from the bone. And that is as tender as it can be. Let's get those beans back in there. Don't want those beans out. Okay, so we're just going to set this over to the side and let it cool. And while that's cooling, give this a little stir. You can see that our beans are really cooking up. They look nice.
When do we take the leaves out?
Look at the difference in the color. I will remove the leaves right before I put the other vegetables in. So I'm going to replace the lid. Let that continue to cook. I'll turn it up just a hair to get it back to temperature. And now we're going to saute our vegetables. So I'm going to take 2 tablespoons of butter, put in my skillet, turn that on, and let that start to melt. Now, while that's melting, let me show you our vegetables. I did go ahead and chop up the onions, carrots, and celery. And I told you that we would cut them up so that they were about the size of a bean. We want everything to be about that same size. So, you can see about the size that I've chopped them up. Even the onion, I've chopped up about the same size. So, we will put those 3 in our skillet and just let those start to cook down. We need to turn that down just a little bit. Just let that butter coat that skillet some. And we'll put in our vegetables. I have heard people call onions, carrots, and celery the Holy Trinity in cooking. I'm not sure I like that. That sounds a little sacrilegious to me, but I do know people say that. So we're going to put those 3 in and just let those start to kind of sweat down. Now, there's a piece of celery with big long strings sticking out of it. Can you see that? I can't stand that. So I just pull those off if I see anything like that. All right, and there's a piece of onion. It's not chopped real well. Okay, so we're just going to move those around a little bit. Let that butter kind of coat all those vegetables. Now these are going to need to cook probably 15 minutes or so, just to start to sweat down. And then we will add these to our soup pot with the beans, and hopefully by then our ham hock will be cool enough that I can handle it and get in there and pick that meat off and chop it up. And we'll do the same thing with the meat that we did with these vegetables. We'll try to chop it at about the same size as the beans. You don't want huge chunks of meat, but you do want to know you've got meat in there. So we will go ahead and sweat these, let these cook down some. Now they don't have to cook all the way because they are going into the soup pot and it's going to cook for another 45 minutes to an hour. So these don't have to be cooked all the way. You just kind of want to get them started, sweat them down a little bit, and then we'll just dump them in. Okay, I'm going to let these sweat. I'm going to try to chop up that ham hock if I can get my hands on it. It's not too hot. And then when we get these cooked for about 10 minutes or so, and we get the ham chopped up, we'll come back and show you putting it all together. We'll be right back. I have picked the meat off the ham hock, and you can see it's not a huge amount of meat, but there's some meat to go into the bean soup. You can see that I've gotten rid of the skin and the fat and the bones, so we'll just get rid of that. And this can go right into the pot. Just add that right in. We also are going to add our vegetables. So those will go right in. And I'll just tell you, I may have overdone it on the vegetables a little bit. There's a little bit more than probably what I should have put in it, but that's okay. And then I am going to add 2 more cups of water. Whatever liquid you decided to use, go ahead and use more of that if you think you need it. I just felt like it had kind of evaporated enough that I needed some extra liquid in there. So I'm going to take out the bay leaves, if I can find the other one. There it is. All right, so we'll remove those. And then the last thing I have to put in is our garlic. And I'm going to put 2 cloves, or if you're using this that's already minced up, that's 1 teaspoon. So we'll just put that in. And now we'll stir it all up really well. Let it come back to a simmer. And it needs to cook for probably another 40-45 minutes. A total of about 2.5 hours. We did an hour and a half, and then I've taken about 15 minutes to do the ham hock and sweat the vegetables. So probably another 45 minutes or so. So we're going to bring that back up to a simmer, let it cook for just a little while longer, and when it's finished, we'll come back and let you see what it looks like. Our soup has cooked for another 45 minutes. The vegetables are tender. I did try one of the carrots just to make sure, and it is tender. So now we're going to taste it because we need to see if it needs salt and or pepper. Isn't that a really nice looking soup? Today is kind of a dreary, cold, drizzly, rainy day, and soup like this is just perfect on a day like that. Do you want the first bite?
That's okay. It's hard to eat soup like that. But it does smell
Yeah, it
really
does
good.
drip, doesn't it? It smells so good. It has to have salt. Oh, that's pretty bland. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to start with 1 teaspoon of salt. This is a half teaspoon, so I'm doing 2 of those. And I'm going to do half teaspoon of pepper. Should have used white pepper in it. That would have looked nicer. Actually, the black pepper's fine in it. Get that pepper off the edge. Grab another bowl. Try just a spoon of it and see. Okay, let me try this. That's a big pot of soup, so 1 teaspoon may not be enough. That's better. Still not enough. We have to go at least another half. Okay, that should do it now. You just have to taste it and adjust it to number 1 to what you like. But also, you know, the beans and the broth and whatever can be different. So you just have to adjust it to your liking.
If you were using broth, probably wouldn't need as much, you think?
If you used regular chicken broth that has sodium in it, you probably wouldn't need any at all. But because I used all water, there's just no flavor there. So you usually have to add a little salt. Sometimes, most of the time I don't, but sometimes I do. So anyway, today it needed it. Thank you for watching our video. Make a big pot of soup like this. By the way, this freezes really well. So if you make a pot of soup like this and you don't eat it all, put it in individual containers and stick it in your freezer. And in 5 minutes, you can have it straight out of the microwave. Nice hot soup for a cold, rainy, gloomy day like we have here. We do appreciate you watching our video. Remember that right below this video where you see the title of the recipe, you can click there. That box will expand. Melissa always puts the written recipe there for you so you can get it right there. And under that is our contact information. So if you need that, it's right there for you. Also, if you would give us a thumbs up right below this video, that just tells YouTube you liked it, and then they will share it more. They will send it to other people because someone clicked that they liked it. If you've not already, please click that subscribe button and the little notification bell beside of it. And when you click that notification bell, you can click the word all, and they'll send you a notice every time we add a new recipe or a new video. All right. Thank you so much. We do appreciate you watching our videos and supporting our channel. And we want you to remember that you are always welcome to come sit at my table. Have a great day.